Good afternoon, friends. Stephen Bennun here with Israeli News Live, joined with our very special guest, Debra Tavres with StopTheCrime.net. Today is June the 7th, 2025, and Debra is going to be sharing a very serious matter, something that you really need to be taking to heart, pay close attention to, and I think you'll find that it goes along with a lot of things we've been discussing here in the past week. Debra, welcome to the broadcast, to this disclosure that we're sharing with people today.
Thank you, Steve, so much. We're going to be discussing three different topics tonight. We're going to be spending the majority of the discussion on the document entitled The National Blueprint for Biodefense. And it says immediate action needed to defend against biological threats. And this is a report from the Bipartisan Commission on Biodefense of April of 2024. So if you would share that cover, if you have that.
It is there. It is there.
People know how they get to this document.
Yes, if you go to Debra's website, stopthecrime.net, enter the website, and then as soon as you do, on the top right-hand corner, you'll have a search tab. Type in the National Blueprint for Biodefense. It's going to take you right directly to this on Debra's website, stopthecrime.net. I'll have a link in the description below. I'll even put a direct link where it'll take you directly to this document. It's about 180 pages, somewhere around there, document, but very, very informative.
Yeah, it's a very important document. Everyone needs to know the preparation in advance of the bioweapon attack that we're all going to face. And they're announcing that this is going to occur on the 4th of July of 2025. And there are 170 pages in this document. Now we're going to start in the endnotes. I want everybody to understand how the United States has participated in the creation and distribution and manipulation of bioweapon attacks. So on page 61, Steve, the very top of that page, it says in notes. And the third paragraph down, it says, this is not a complete excerpt of my reading of this, but it will give you the understanding. From 1973, remember that, from 1943 to 1969, the United States learned how to weaponize, distribute, combine, manipulate, and counteract many biological agents. And they list a number of biological agents in that paragraph, including the Venezuelan equine encephalitis virus and many others, as well as anti-material organisms. Then you drop down another paragraph, and it talks about germs and biological warfare and America's secret wars. And you can learn more about that on page 150 of this document. Now, Steve, I know that we talk about the they that does these things to us, but I think it's very, very important to first look at the second page of this document. So from the title page, the National Blueprint for Biodefense, if you click onto, and they're not numbered, but it will give you the names of the commissioners involved in the attack on us, using these weapons on us, because we're seeing bioweapons being used in the air, the water, the soil, and all manners of poisons and toxins on all of us in the United States and worldwide. So you can look at some of the names of the commissioners and understand these people are were still involved. And then it goes under acknowledgments, and you can read the various agencies that are involved.
And that's
And
scary in itself, Deborah. Some names are very common to people, like Tom Daschle, Frederick Upton, Susan Brooks. You know, these are congressmen, senators, etc., that are involved in this, and that's terrifying to think that our elected officials would be involved in such horrendous actions.
yes, and you'll see on page 2 who signed this. We're talking about Joseph Lieberman and Thomas Ridge. Now, I'm going to get into this pre-planned scenario. This is a pre-planned event, and they've already designated the number of deaths that will result from this attack. Again, this is a pre-planned and staged AI computer activated attack. And this document is dated 2024. So let me read a quote from page 10, just so you'll be clear as to what you are hearing going forward. This is from page 10. Quote, these are not just words on pages. This is a call for immediate action. And I will tell you, in this document, we have been told about the future and what will happen, because this will be orchestrated. Just like the NASA document that I presented so many years ago, that I entitled the NASA War Document, The Future is Now. You'll find many of these same biological weapons and vectors specified in that document as well. So let's get into this, Steve, because we have little time, and I think what we're going to need to consider doing is really several disclosures on this document, because I can't cover everything. And after I go through this document, we're going to pull up the animal depopulation instruction and programs to kill off all the. And because this document talks about this bioweapon event that is going to simultaneously kill hundreds of thousands of people along with animals. So they're creating a story ahead of the attack. So let's get into this. The chair of a congressional joint inquiry provided context for this report you're hearing me talk about by portraying a biological attack sufficient to cause the catastrophic consequences warned of by the Bipartisan Commission on Biodefense. This describes how a biological agent could and will target humans and animals, how disease can emerge, some of the key capabilities required to address the agent and its impact, and the consequences of our failure to act and preparing for bioweapon defense. We have not failed. Our country is allowing us to be attacked. We are being flown over every day, all day, and in many places, multiple times through the night with overhead aerosol death dumps, aka chemtrails or geoengineering. It is dropping neck on us. It is destroying our crops and food, along with moving moisture from place to place, distributing the sludge from the wastewater treatment plants that cause PFAS. And you need to understand this. So let me stay with this document. So they go on to say, because this is an advance warning. All of you that are listening, this is an advance warning.
What page are we on now, Deborah?
We're on page 3.
Page 3. Okay.
Yes. A joint inquiry into administration and congressional actions before and during the bioterrorist attacks on July 4th of 2025. So this is a scenario Meaning the consequences and the results of their plan. Make no mistake. So now they're talking about as if it already happened because they know the head count of deaths. So let's go into it. Because this is active biological weapon attack. They say 9 weeks ago, some nation or terrorist group, we still don't know, attacked the nation's capital and other U.S. cities with biological weapons as we celebrated Independence Day, July 4th of 2025. The infectious agent they used killed at least 280,000 Americans and infected at least 400,000 throughout the country in a single day, in addition to over 200,000 dead and 800,000 sickened animals. These numbers will increase as the disease spreads. Many of our own colleagues and staff here in Congress fell ill, and coordinated attacks in allied nations in the days that followed killed tens of thousands of more people. The terrorists conducted similar scale attacks in America's cities and localities prior to 4th of July incidents to test our defense and gauge our response. These smaller scale attacks have gone largely unnoticed. Now I'm going to add, our cattle are being attacked. Our water supplies are being attacked now. They have been for a long time. These are not going unnoticed because we're reporting this to you. So make no mistake, we are seeing this. They go on. The laboratory tests confirmed that Nipah virus caused the disease, but we still don't know what methods what adversaries use to infect humans and spread the disease among livestock in rural communities. So, from the WHO, the World Health Organization, here's what they say about Nipah virus, NIPAH virus, short for NUV. It's from bats, and it's from a particular family of bats. And the name of this particular family of the host of this is spelled T as in Paul, T E R O E O D I D A E. So you can just type in Nipah virus in the WHO, and it will tell you this information. And it is going to be the natural host, they say. This is all bioweapons. We're being told there is no treatment and no vaccine. In other words, this will go off, kill millions, and they will implement columns here as a lockdown in all of our cities. We will be cordoned off because the spread is endless, and it goes from human to human to human to animal to animal to animal, and round and round and round. So it says that animals and people were sick for more than a month before we realized what had happened. The virus is in the same family as other common human and animal viruses. Most American veterinarians and physicians had never seen the Nipah virus before, which delays recognition. Now you're hearing what this is. There's no need for delayed recognition. We're not going to be fooled and tricked again into genocide and acceptance. So I'll continue. The virus, which is in nature, does not spread easily among people, but was genetically modified to increase its ability to spread from animal to animal, animal to person, and person to person, while still retaining a mortality rate of over 40%. This is page 4, Steve.
We're there.
Under the synopsis, they go on to say this. For years before this, many experts said that although nation states and terrorist organizations aspire to use bacteriological weapons, they lack the leadership, organizational wherewithal, infrastructure, expertise, and social support to develop and deploy them. That is not true. They have a stockpile and they've been doing this since 1943 and before. Our own soldiers were poisoned and hit with agents. Black communities were poisoned and hit specifically with agents, as were tribal communities. All colors. It doesn't matter what ethnicity you are. We are being. So we go on page 4. Despite these assessments, our adversaries conducted the deadly biological attacks of July 4th here in the United States and throughout the world. It tells us they took advantage of the following. Our failure to eliminate the vulnerabilities revealed during COVID-19 pandemic. They say our failure to conduct sufficient biological intelligence activities to indicate an imminent attack. So what they're saying here is mass surveillance. Failure to conduct significant biological intelligence activities. You're going to hear this theme throughout our failures because this is takeover. This is about geofencing all of it within our areas. You will hear how even in-built buildings, offices, and inside airplanes are going to be deadly. So it goes on. Our failure to achieve early detection of the biological agent and our failure to identify the source of exposure in a timely way. These are excuses. This is not true. They know what they're doing, and they're doing it. Our failure to rapidly identify and recognize its occurrence in livestock. Our livestock has been being pummeled. Our livestock are sick. So are the deer. So are many animals, and we'll discuss this in the deep as the animal document that I'll discuss briefly. Our failure to rapidly identify the disease in people, and our failure to consistently fund public health and healthcare preparedness. That is a money laundering scheme when they say they're funding public health care preparedness, because they're not. We're being left wide open, just like with the power grid. The power grid was designed to fail, and lights out on a massive scale is the plan, just like the bioweaponization and the murder is a plan. They go on, our failure to stockpile sufficient medical countermeasures, and our failure to communicate effectively within the government to our allies, and most importantly, to the American people. Now you are being told it's your job to pass this information along. Get this document to everyone you know. Know about this in advance. We should not be fooled again. They say, ultimately, our adversaries took advantage of our failure to make biodefense a top national priority. It is especially painful to me and other leaders of committees throughout Congress that we failed in our duty to gather the necessary information, data, and connect the dots and produce intelligence and to prevent and attribute these attacks. Remember, we are USA Incorporated. We are under occupation. We have been. Don't be fooled by the illusion of Congress. They're not there to represent us. And Steve, we have a very important USA Incorporated video that we did not that long ago.
Yes, yes. And that can be easily found either on Deborah's website and also the playlist on our YouTube channel that we have entitled Debra Tavres.
So I'm going to skip more of what I had underlined on page 4. I'm now moving to page 5. Okay, this is important. There were and continue to be failures to respond effectively. Now let's look at responses in these weather weaponized attacks. Look what they did to Los Angeles, to Malibu, to the Pacific Palisades. Look what they did here in my area in 2017, called the Tubbs, Tubbs fire, when they wiped out over 5,000 houses and businesses and a hotel. And look what they did a year later in 2018, when they wiped out Paradise with directed energy weapons, and then Lahaina. People look as if this is natural climate. It is not. We are under mass attack, and they're using fungus. Fungus everywhere is exploding. So I'll go over that in a moment. But the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Health and Human Services still have no way to prevent additional infections, treat exposed people and animals effectively. They do, they won't. They say they aren't able to effectively thwart the establishment of pathogens in new reservoirs. Now I'm going to go back on reservoirs here for a moment. They go on to wrap up that paragraph by saying, to prevent this disease from becoming permanently established in the United States. They're saying permanently. They are poisoning the water supply. Now, I know many of you are hearing about the removals of reservoirs and dams. They are cauldrons of poisons, absolute poisons. They are forever toxins. And the poisons in the reservoirs that they are using for our drinking water in municipal water supplies is a bioweapon in and of itself. Now, I'm here where PG&E, who's our utility, aka Rothschild, is going to be eliminating 3 reservoirs. It will impact well over 80,000 people in different counties here. They will only have access to 17% of the water that they now have. However, in the first term of Trump's administration, he enacted a fast build out of wastewater treatment plants because of climate change and the idea that water is a finite resource. Now, you know it's not. You know that we have primary water, and water is a renewable, and it comes up and below. And they're talking about how this will be passed in, the pathogens will be in reservoirs. That will contaminate this whole country and the world, because we have topside water that can easily be poisoned everywhere, worldwide, streams, rivers, lakes, reservoirs. We have it all. It's all topside. It's easily poisoned, and it's been poisoned. And we cannot drink that water. We've got to come up with locating springs near our homes. You can type in and find where the springs are. But these pathogens are going to spread. Lockdowns will ensue because they're going to claim that they want to really contain the spread. And the intention is continue to make it ill so that we easily come to a one world order and control Palantir and complete mind and physical control as we are then transitioned in to synthetic. That is the goal. So they go on to say the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Defense, Homeland Security, Department of Health and Human Services, and Department of Justice failed in their initial effort. So you need to understand these are the very agencies put in place to destroy us. I have a list of all these agencies that came out of Israel and London to privatize the water supply in the United States, which they have done. And these are just a few of the agencies set up to privatize the water, to reduce our access to water, but it's poisonous and toxic. So they go on to say on page 5, as I speak, critical infrastructure owners and operators and emergency service providers are struggling valiantly to do their job while keeping their own families safe in the absence of adequate protection. Our military is splitting resources to help with domestic response and overseas, and the intelligence community is spread thin, trying to prevent our enemies from taking further advantage of our vulnerabilities to this biological weapon and other threats. They said we are convening this hearing today to discover exactly what happened, how this leadership failed, the failure occurred, and what our nation must do to recover from these attacks. We also intend to determine what it will take to prevent additional attacks and ensure our country has done all it can do to be prepared for the next biological event in case their efforts fall short. So I want everybody to come away. This is about more surveillance. We're going to cry for more surveillance to prevent biological weapons and the poisoning of all that we are drinking, consuming, and the soil. We're going to beg for more surveillance to keep us safe. Don't beg for more surveillance. So now we have on page 7, Steve, we have the summary. I'm just going to go over a couple of.
We're on that page, executive summary.
Yes, and it says the biological threat has not abated. In fact, the threat has intensified. Now we know that this is being allowed. I will remind you, back in the early 70s, there was an attack in Medford, Oregon. The use of frequencies that went through the antenna and the wires in a dozen people's homes who committed suicide from frequencies. Keep in mind, this is all part of the weakening of our systems and the biological weapons attack. So let's read the last 2 paragraphs on page 7. Extensive research supports what we all witness together firsthand. Biological threats hold the power to devastate our way of life. You think? The question remains if, not if, but when we confront another biological event, whether it be a biological weapons attack or another pandemic. Modern science and technology hold keys. They do not. They have created these technologies. They hold the keys to ensuring that we can intelligently and confidently prepare, respond, and recover. All the black money, all the money laundering, all the deep state, whatever you want to call it, they're doing this to us to further diminish our capabilities to exist. More homelessness. We're watching wide worldwide. There are so many plans afoot, they are countless. And they do mention homeless people in here. But they also then say in the last paragraph on page 7, in the wake of COVID-19 and today's global unrest, there is nothing about the need to implement 36 recommendations presented in the pages that follow in the 2024 National Blueprint for Biodefense. Each of these recommendations is the result of an exhaustive review of the gaps in current federal policies and procedures, and gaps that leave us all unnecessarily vulnerable to a biological incident. These are gaps, intentional gaps, Steve. You know that.
Yes.
This is intentional. So we're going to move to page 8 I'm going to cover a few things here.
Okay.
The bottom line, they talk about 15 federal departments, 9 independent agencies, and one independent institution currently have biodefense responsibilities. One federal department cannot tell other departments and agencies what to do. Only the White House has that authority. We are under occupation. We're a corporation. The White House, all of the positions are put in place and selected. So remember that. This recommendation addresses the problem. In other words, they're going to the very perpetrators and asking for biodefense recommendations and help to the very perpetrator. They go on. This is why this report calls for a biodefense review that would culminate in an updated national biodefense strategy and implementation plan submitted to Congress, which does not exist. We're USA Inc. by the White House. The threats change. Technology change. Our biodefense also changes. Much has been learned. The nation's response to COVID-19. They bankrupted us. They did. They bankrupted the world. But much has been learned, yes, on how to do it effectively again and again and again. So I continue. So yes, indeed, much has been learned about the nation's response to COVID-19 pandemic. At the top of the list is the need to reduce pathogen transmission indoors. Now pay attention.
Yeah. Think about that one, right?
I'm sorry?
Think about that one there. When they want to reduce the pathogens indoors, that's invading your home to do so.
Well, it's worse. This could essentially call for lockdowns. So listen to this. They talk about built environments, such as in offices, healthcare facilities, in schools, and airplanes allow for easier transmission of dangerous pathogens, particularly those communicated motively via respiratory pathways. This is a shutdown again. Further isolation. We do not fare well in isolation, and this is the plan to degrade our mental ability to continue to exist. While the U.S. Has significant effect to engineer and defend such indoor environment against fires, earthquakes, and floods, which we have the very patents that show how they do and conduct the directed energy weapons, Steve. We've covered that. We've given the directed energy weapon patent for the blue lasers,
Yes.
for how the wind is created, how the earthquakes are created, how the tornadoes, how all of the weather is patented. When that document was released by the U.S. Air Force, it said, owning the weather by 2025. Owning. They've patented it. They own it. It's not controlling, it's owning. They own it. Think about that, because we talked about all the patents. So they go on. Against fires, earthquakes, and flood, far less effort is put into engineering indoor environments against pathogens. That gap likely resulted in significant loss of life during the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, I will digress for a moment. Here in California and in other states as well, we are having great difficulty getting insurance. And what we now have been noticing are the drones that PG&E, aka files, and satellites are flying overhead in our communities here in Northern California. They are able to track and identify addresses where there's mold growing on the north side of the roofs of houses, and I'm talking about fungus and mold. They are sending insurance representations out there to decide whether they will renew insurance. And rather than really looking at fire clearing of debris around the houses initially, they're immediately going up and taking photographs of the north side of the roof to see if there's or fungus. Because then what is required homeowner is the replacement of their roofs. Now, I was recently talking to my friend Alana Freeland because many people are noticing fungus coming up through their water pipes. So think of it like this. You're upstairs in your bathroom, you're at your bathroom sink, and you're noticing fungus around the escutcheon of your sink. It's black. Not much, but it's black. You might try to clean it, but you may try what some people have tried, and this is what they've discovered. You might want to put a little block of bleach, not too much, down the sink, just a little bit, and wait. In a few hours, the fungus will emerge it's unbelievable, in black. Then a little time goes by, and then you pour a glove of hydrogen peroxide down that hole.
Yes.
Now, say nothing has exploded. This is fixing things that are causing a problem because we're talking about. It's up to you to be safe with your gloves. But what you will find is the hydrogen peroxide makes a noise, as it does when it's certainly bubbling white if you have a cut or there's an infection. But that noise is horrific when it goes down the sink. Then that fungus retracts. It retracts. Now this is synthetic. And it is everywhere throughout the country. It is as the result of what they're doing to the atmosphere and the weather. I shall not digress. We will continue. Page 8. New technologies to reduce transmission surfaces, including self-sterile and neutralizing materials, are available now. However, the most promising public health interventions evolve about improving indoor air quality. Now, of course, we know about indoor air quality, but when we have dust storms that are hitting parts of our country that are coming from Saudi Arabia, has happened in a number of days, dust storms from Saudi Arabia. My friends are reporting this. Plus, at about a week ago, there were over 180 fires in Canada. And where were they directing all the deadly smoke? To many states in the United States with severe warnings of air pollution. We have had many people and dogs here after the fires of 2016 succumb to the deadly smoke. These are all biological weapon attacks. And now they're coming in for the grand finale on July the 4th of 2025. These are their dates, not mine. This is what they are, not me. This is their document. This is their words. I'm only reporting to you. On page 9, they go on to say, the list of action items needed to accomplish the goal is very long. It begins with requirements that the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Disease, a specific biodefense, they're going to tax us. They are creating a new economy. It's called a biodefense economy, based on taxing us for their attacks on us. So tax the attacks. This is what is being promulgated right now. Just like now, our insurance for fires going up quadruple because of the massive cost to rebuild where people will be allowed, maybe not in large in Los Angeles. However, biological events, they're saying, either naturally or human generated, critical infrastructure, and immediately place our economic and public health security at, you think? Imagining waking up to the news that you cannot drink the water in your home because a deadly pathogen was intentionally into your water system. Now expand that to include your entire city, state, or region, and that you and millions of others will not be able to use the water in our homes for months, perhaps longer. Our lives will immediately be turned upside down. And Steve, the lives are immediately and very turned upside down.
Yes.
They go on. Moreover, it is highly unlikely that a biological event will affect at least one, just one critical infrastructure. An event might affect several, if not many sectors directly, with cascading on others. Remember, the anthrax events of 2001 affected or involved 11 sectors. This is why we must prioritize protection of critical infrastructure against biological threats. They are not protected. We are being left wide open to be.
Yes. Deborah, you're starting to cut in and out quite a bit, but luckily I'm able to highlight the document as you're reading it so people can follow along still.
Okay, thank you, Steve. As you know, I'm greatly impaired with communications these days.
Yes.
And I'm doing my very best. And I hope all of you understand that I am doing my very best to get this information out to you. So let's look at page 10, Steve.
Okay.
It goes on, replacing BioWatch with a national biological detection system that actually works. This commission has argued and continues to argue that 20 years after its implementation, the potential of BioWatch remains unrealized, but simply BioWatch is a waste of money that hinders the ability of first responders in our nation's largest cities to detect biological events before they produce illness or death in humans, animals, and plants. Now let's think about BioWatch. What do you think they mean about BioWatch, Steve? Does Palantir come to mind?
Exactly. And Palantir is definitely being stepped up by President Trump even now. So only imagine what they're making ready for it as we speak, Deborah.
Yes, they are. And we've talked about that. We're watching the deployment of the flock surveillance system nationwide and worldwide. These are geofence lockdowns. Make no mistake. They've already told us that transmission of bioweaponized diseases will occur in buildings, offices, schools, airplanes. We're talking about not being able to fly, travel. They don't want us to travel. We are to be in these lockdown slaughter cities that people call 15-minute cities. These are cities of death with frequencies that we cannot physically survive in. This is what it is. Everything operated by a key fob. Everything. We talked about this at length in the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document. We've talked about this at length in the Secret Covenant, the Illuminati Secret Covenant. For those of you who have not looked at that, you can type that in on stopthecrime.net and read it. You need to. You need to understand that this discusses the illusion that will be so big and so large and so vast, it will escape our perception. and those who will see it will be thought to be insane. That's what's been set upon us. This is a declaration of war against all of us. And it says that in the Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars document.
Yes.
So let's talk about on page 10. We understand that our recommendations are comprehensive and numerous. We know that the U.S. government will not be able to implement them all at once. But we also know that if our country adopted anything in this report, our people would be well protected from the next biological attack, accident, or naturally occurring pandemic, just as our people would have been had the United States implemented all of the recommendations from our 2015 blueprint for biodefense. And here's where the opening to my discussion started on page 10. It says these are not just words on pages. This is a call for immediate action. We are being attacked. And on the 4th of July, now there has been some discussion because I have certainly covered what the fireworks contain. When you go and watch the fireworks, there's deadly fallout from the fireworks. I don't know if you've covered this on any programs or disclosures you've done, Steve, but over the years, I have found out what many of the ingredients are in fireworks. You shouldn't be under them. You shouldn't be breathing it. But now they could be launching a bioweaponized attack amongst the fireworks. So it has been a potential distraction. We don't know, but that certainly would make sense. And over large crowds.
Yes.
So let's talk about on page 13, briefly. They go on to talk about how they will assign responsibility to the White House and the National Economic Council for bioeconomy. They're creating a bioeconomy. We can't pay for this. We're going to be taxed, as I said earlier, to be attacked. We're already being taxed to be attacked by weather weapons. Look what they're doing to us. They're dismantling and destroying and killing and uprooting homes, families, communities, upending trees because the trees are dead and dying. I don't know what more to say about this, Steve.
And making us pay for it, Deborah, as you said. They're taxing us, so put it bluntly, they attack you and then they make you pay for the attack.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So I'm just flipping through. I know we're going to have to come back and do some additional disclosures of this document, but I am hoping that people will read this. I'm looking at page 15, science and technology. Here's what they're saying we need to do for these biodefense attacks. They talk about the Apollo program. Do you see that at the top of page 15, science and technology?
Yes.
Okay, develop vaccine candidates for prototype pathogens. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
Develop therapeutic drugs. This is all about drugging us for the attacks, via our attacks. They say develop therapeutic drugs in advance of outbreaks, in advance of what they do to us. Develop flexible, scalable manufacturing of pharmaceuticals. Develop needle-free methods of drug and vaccine.
Deborah, by the way, on that one right there, in the country of Slovakia, they were testing ways to be able to deliver the vax there that was not conventional. And it was without needles, it was not even oral. They had a way of delivering it right through the skin.
Yes, because the technology is available for them to do that. And this technology has been available for a long time. We're hearing about that in the ads now, in just regular advertisement, that things can be done, they claim, to help us with medications remotely. Remotely.
Yes.
Yes, that's just normal conversation now in advertisement. They go on to say, minimally and non-invasive infection detection. We're talking about, as I say, mass Palantir, mass flock surveillance, mass sensors, mass cameras, because we will be not only the enemy, we will be considered infectious carriers. We will. So will our animals. So will the food supply until we're erased.
By the way, Deborah, on that, when we're looking at ubiquitous sequencing, that is what, and they call it a future vision of DNA sequencing, which readily is available and accessible as other technologies we use daily. But this is something that they have already developed. It's not really known to the public, but they have determined one of the things that they were doing. This is why they were collecting so much data of DNA during that last round that we went through. I'm going to be cautious in my verbiage here. But the purpose for collecting that DNA was to be able to develop certain things that could genetically identify a particular DNA sequence within a race and wipe that group out completely.
That's exactly right. And also to specifically target a specific person.
Very true. Very true.
So as we look at these points here, we can also see that they're going to establish a digital pathogen surveillance system. Think about that one, Steve.
Yep.
Develop a national public health data system. Everyone, I hope you're hearing this. Bolster the National Pathogen Surveillance and Forecasting Center, so they will forecast in advance. Well,
remind you of the pre-crime issue, right? Now they can forecast the pathogen as well.
Yes. But look at how they lie to us about the weather forecasting.
Yes.
They never tell us that the clouds we see are actually man-made clouds with poisons in them. They never tell us that they can move rain and liquid and water and make droughts and cause fires. Everything on the news is misinformation, disinformation, and a lie. So we have to read these points on page 15 carefully. So they talk about develop the next generation of personal protective equipment. So we're going to be walking around in protective gear. Can you imagine? We're going to look like we're already on the moon. I'm dead serious about
I know, and people have no idea. I mean, if you've ever worked in a nuclear facility, we used to call it banana suits, right? You go around like you're wearing a full body of a raincoat, the old-fashioned yellow rain jacket with the booties on, taped down, wrist taped down to the gloves, and your full face covered and everything. Yeah, that's going to be really lovely. And talk about people dropping dead from heat exhaustion. That'll cause it.
Absolutely. And we know that they are creating bioweaponized vectors. Look what we've already know about the mosquitoes and the ticks. People are dying a very slow, hard death with these weaponized insects. And this is discussed in the NASA document. You can go to stopthecrime.net and you can look at the NASA document. I have done countless shows and disclosure on this document. This is all true. So they go on to say this. They're going to establish a comprehensive laboratory, biosafety, and biosecurity. You bet they are, right? Yeah. They're going to screen, just as you were saying earlier, screen DNA synthesis providers and users and purchase genetic material from verified vendors. And you can look into that more on page 8 of this document. I would highly recommend that each and every single one of you download, print this document. Spend some time reading this document. We need all hands on deck to figure out how we might be able, if we harden up in ways we have not yet considered, we might be able to survive a little bit longer in a world that is set to kill us all, including our beloved pets. So reduce pathogen transmission in built environments. So they talk about develop health-based biodefense standards for reducing pathogen transmission in built environments. We can only imagine what that's going to look like. We can only imagine, because what you're hearing me is unimaginable. Unimaginable. Facilitate defense technology transition. Address military biodefense research gaps. It's all a gap. It's all a gap, an intentional gap. Now I'm going to continue because I've talked about the use of water supplies for poisoning and furthering the pathogens. Are you hearing me okay enough,
Yes,
Dave?
yes, it actually cleared up right after I mentioned it. It cleared up.
Okay, thank you. Now on page 16, I want to go over some of these points. Authorize the Office of Planetary Protection. An Office for Planetary Protection. This is a worldwide attack. Just like the flock surveillance Palantir monitoring every word you say or don't say, because they can capture the energy in your brain before you even verbally articulate your thoughts. So authorize the Office of Planetary Protection. Establish a planetary biodefense board. The world is going to suffer the unimaginable. All these innocent victims that are being slaughtered right now, we're heading into the worst slaughter of them all. Incorporate lessons learned from pandemics into regulatory processes. Think about all of this. Require a biodefense budget plan from the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. The budget plan will be massive taxes. They talk about reestablish multi-year biodefense funding for the medical countermeasure procurement. And then they go on. Eliminate Office of Management and Budget Review of BioShield procurements. Eliminate the review process. Warp speed, conduct no experiments. They're killing us. They don't need to experiment. Experimentation is over. Develop needle-free methods of drug and vaccine administration. We already looked at that on a prior page, but I'm looking at page 16 right now. Develop flexible and scalable manufacturing of pharmaceuticals. Establish an antigen bank. Establish regional food and agriculture advanced development and manufacturing. This is everything created in a lab. Everything. Because everything will be poisoned. Everything. So I could go on. I will go on a bit longer, but I want to talk about some other documents as well. I don't want to overload the listeners. If they're overloaded, I can just say, well, read the information. I've only read parts of it to you and gone over parts of it. And I pieced together documents over many decades. And this is rolling out on all of us now. And the level of targeting and the severity of those that are being injured has massively increased. And now they plan on killing hundreds and hundreds of people and animals on the 4th of July. So let's continue talking and covering a few points on page 17. This is called preparedness. Strengthens stockpile supply and distribution. So you may want to look at this. You may want to think about strengthening your own stockpile and seeing what they're recommending and what you might do. You may not want to authorize provision of expiring biodefense vaccines to first responders and critical infrastructure personnel. This is B, as in boy, right under strengthen stockpile. Look at that, Steve.
Yes, yes.
Give expiring biodefense vaccines to first responders and critical infrastructure personnel. Develop a strategy and implementation plan for distributing at-home diagnostic tests and therapeutics. When did we last hear that? Wasn't that starting in March of 2020 for a few years at home?
Oh, yes.
Require periodic evaluation of smallpox medical countermeasure stockpile needs in consideration of this threat. Now, I want to add something here because I was startled by this. I learned that many, many decades ago, how they spread rabies. This was a long time ago, decades ago in Europe. They cut off the heads of chickens. They injected them with the bioweapon, with the rabies vaccine, which is a bioweapon. And they distributed these chicken heads from planes and also from vehicles on roadways, because the foxes would go and eat the chicken heads. The foxes developed rabies. They began attacking pets and biting people. This is how they started the rabies. And now they want your pets vaccinated with the rabies vaccine. Did you know about that? Had you ever heard of that?
I actually heard that before, but I believe it was you were discussing it on one of the previous broadcasts.
I may have. It has just absolutely floored me. All the ways in which they have cunningly deceived us and poisoned us and the animals. So I will continue now with some of the points on page 17. Authorize and bolster the National Veterinary Stockpile. Enable hiring of reemployed during the biological emergencies. Employ medical research corps and volunteers during biological emergencies. Ensure military health care and public health readiness for biological events. People don't even know about this. We're going to do this after the attacks, which are ongoing right now. Ongoing right now. Establish medical surge capacity and capacity for large-scale biological events. Nope, they're not doing it. Number 18. Defend critical infrastructure against biological threats. Manage biological risk to critical infrastructure. Now, Steve, I could go on and on. I think everyone that's heard this thus far, I hope, are moved to download this document or share this information far, far, far and wide. Understand the dilemma we are all in. All of us, everyone, Steve. No one's exempt.
It's definitely not a very pretty picture.
No, it's not. It's a picture that is horrific to discuss, but it is on the books. It's on the books. So I just want to go over a document that I went over on a number of reveals well over a year and a half ago. But I want to bring back this document, Steve, and I think you have it, you brought it up.
AVMA, Guidelines for Depopulation of Animals, correct?
That's correct. So that is an acronym. A is in apple, V is in very, M is in mother, A is in apple or animal. So guidelines for the depopulation of animals, the 2019 edition. And they talk about the members of the panel on animal depopulation. And they name names. They have commissions based on all kinds of getting rid of animals. They have laboratory animals. They have bovine, swine, small ruminant, poultry, equine, aquatics, zoo, and wildlife. It goes on and on and on. But I will say to you this. It's available on stopthecrime.net. I wish you would download it. Would you tell folks, Steve, how to find it?
Yes, if you go to stopthecrime.net or if you go to the description of this video, I will actually have the direct link that will take you directly to this particular article. But if you notice there, you have a search bar, and I'll show you right there on stopthecrime.net how that works. And when you go to any of the search bar, when you go to the search bar at the top, once you enter into stopthecrime.net, you will want to immediately enter into what is called press here to enter the website. Then at the top right is where you click on search. And at that point, then you can actually enter in any of these documents that we're talking about on here, such as when we're talking about the National Blueprint for Biodefense. Just type those words in on that bar there. It'll bring you to this document. Or in the case of the AVMA guidelines for the depopulation of animals, you can type that in the search bar on stopthecrime.net and it'll bring you right to this particular document that Deborah is talking about. And as she said, it's a great idea to print it out because one day we won't have the internet at our fingertips to be able to read something like this. So it may be better to have some of these documents already printed out for yourselves. And I will put a direct link, though, for these two different documents that we've talked about today, as well as the NASA war document. I'll also include that. So you'll have three links in the description below. And also remember, too, that on our website, right here under created playlist, Debra Tavres is the second playlist that we have loaded here. And all the videos that we do with Debra are loaded into the playlist besides currently available at that time. And also you can see those on Debra's website. So there we go, Debra.
Thank you, Steve. Now I'm going to go over some of this animal depopulation instructions and how to kill animals. And people need to understand they're killing animals very similarly to the way that we're being murdered as well. They are using bioweapons and diseases. They are pulling out the oxygen from the water supply and causing many of the marine life to beach themselves because there's not enough oxygen, there's too much frequency, and it's disabling their ability to navigate. So they're killing animals in many ways, such as prion, mad cow disease, weather events are a great way that they have discovered to kill animals. Because you may remember it was in May of 1949, there was a deep freeze. You can look this up in the Four Corners. Do you know that animals froze in place? Did you ever see that, Steve?
I don't even remember that.
Well, it was something I covered and I never forgot it because I believe it was May of 1949 and it was the deep freeze. And it was horrific. It was absolutely horrific. And they were using microwave weapons because a man that was under the deep freeze consequences where roofs were caving in and trains of people had to uh, let people off the trains to find houses to huddle in. This went on for some days. You can look it up.
I actually have it
But
up on the screen already.
okay, so you might want to tell folks a little more of what it says so that they can understand what I'm talking about.
This report here, I've not actually read into it as of yet, but it is 1949. Let me pick up a different one, Deborah, but that's where Harold E. Anthony is talking about it from the National Archaeological Database. And boy, they don't want many people seeing about this, is it? Uh,
No, they
Here we
don't.
go.
But
We got this
I will
one
say
here, right?
this.
Yeah, it's going down in history. The blizzards of 1949 is what they call it here. And Plains people exemplify an unusual combination of individualism, helpfulness, cooperation. Well, it just goes into more of the simple sides of these things here.
Well, I want to say that one of the things I discovered when I researched that was a farmer had his guns mounted on his wall. And because of the electromagnetic frequencies, and I can't tell you why or how, but his guns were firing on the wall. He was not pulling the trigger.
You know, Deborah, that was also right about the time they did where they were using these high frequencies to make the ship disappear.
That's right, the Philadelphia experiment.
Yes, Philadelphia experiment. And they claimed that they stopped it, but they never did.
They didn't. And the cause of the San Francisco earthquake
Yes.
also, and many earthquakes. But I shall return to the animal depopulation because I tell you, we love our furry family members and we will spend untold amounts of money to send them to the vets to get them RFID chipped and vaccinated to death. We will rescue animals from inhumane societies whose requirement is to chip and vaccinate. And if they pick up your lost dog or cat on the streets, they get vaccinations as if they have never been vaccinated before. Did you know that? You cannot afford to let your animals out. And should you get an animal that you want to rescue from the inhumane society, you might want to consider getting the RFID chip removed. They're usually injected in the upper right shoulder area, and they can pull them out. Now, I know someone that did get a cat, and when they had the cat's teeth cleaned, they had to put a light sedative for the cat, and they were able at the same time to pull the chip out. The chip was covered in skin, and it was about the size of a piece of long brown rice. This is a cancer site because it is a transmitter and receiver in your animals. For the convenience, if you lose them, you can track them. They are murdering your animals.
Hmm.
So let's talk about the bioweapons and diseases for our animals. Let's talk about the prion, which I mentioned, the use of weather events to kill animals in the wild. burn animals up. We know all about that. Reducing food supplies. They're doing that by burning up the wildlands, which they call the WUI. They don't want anything in the WUI, the wildlands urban interface, not even animals. The lack of water. They're killing animals because of the lack of water. They're talking about how all of this is being done, we're being told, is the need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and methane. We have to reduce methane. And there's fecal material in the water supply. And this is how many animal diseases are transmitted, including the prion disease, which is highly contagious, by the way. Animals can get it just by the fecal debris. I know that there have been many mountain lions here in the Santa Rosa, Northern California area in Sonoma County that have wandered into downtown mall areas, and they have been acting strange, and they do act strange as they are dying, and they're euthanizing them, but they're not telling the public what has happened to them. And this is happening to bear and white-tailed deer, elk. Many people are getting prion disease from hunting. You have to be careful what animals you harvest and eat. Now, I read some documents, Steve, about creating such a fear about the vectors in animals, which they cause, to where people will want to transition to robotic animals. You know, the cute little wind-up, fluffy little
Yes.
dogs and cats that move along?
Yes.
This is what people will want. They're going to become so fearful, and this is going to be presented as an alternative to getting rid of your pet. Now, there's also some of these articles. I'll read the tops of these articles. They talk about insurance for animal liability for acceptable animals. So you can get insurance for an acceptable animal. I'm not going to go into the details of that. I have all the backup on this. Animals are being destroyed also because of the weaponized streetlights. The wildlife corridors are highly monitored with wireless cameras so that we can watch the wildlife at night while we're killing them with wireless frequencies and brain-eating bioweapons. Wow. So we need to understand what we're doing to kill off the wildlife and what is being done with the idea that we're protecting the animals. We're not. So I've written an article. I believe it's probably posted on email blast outs on stopthecrime.net when I was still able to be online. I have many blast outs that I would recommend. They're articles that I've written about documents and information. Also, chronic wasting disease detected in new meadows of mule deer.
Yes,
And
I remember that one.
yes, so we can go on and on. Fish and game officials are asking hunters that harvest deer or elk to have the animals tested for chronic wasting disease. Now, I know of a store owner here in Northern California. He had an audio store, a high-end audio store. And all of a sudden, there were signs across his storefront saying immediate elimination of all merchandise. And he had all kinds of things. He had fully refurbished Model A cars. They were beautiful, beautiful, selling for next to nothing. And I found out he was dying of wasting disease. It was eating his brain.
Oh, wow.
Because he was a hunter. He was a hunter. They have, it's called also the zombie deer disease. And it was, initially detected in Idaho. And I've talked to many people that have this wasting disease. It's a horrific way in which to die. It's violent. So, yes, we have the plan.
But, Deborah, in the document itself, It's a very interesting choice of words, but it makes you think of how the wasting disease got in the atmosphere to begin with, because in their promoting humane destruction of the species of animals addressed in the document, mechanical and
Yes.
physical methods, electric methods, and controlled atmosphere and gas methods. Now, because they put the word gas methods after that atmosphere, we assume that they're talking about, inside a contained area where they're controlling the atmosphere there. But maybe it's a subliminal message there to let you know that they're controlling the atmosphere itself and being able to get rid of some of these species of animals.
Well, they are talking about weather events, and we know that the weather events are controlled.
Yes,
They have, they own the weather. They own it. So for all of you that are just now discovering that maybe there might be some weaponized weather events or some cloud seeding, oh, no, no, no. They own it. Patents on all
yes.
weather events, on it all. You are under mass attack, absolutely mass attack. Now I want to go into something else
Okay.
because I think we have to start tying this together a bit, and then I'll look forward to getting more information out on this because I have much more to cover, Steve. But I think I want to go over this. This is important. This is out of Berkeley, California. We're talking about the university, Berkeley University.
Yes.
They are set up also to spread disinformation. I'm trying to be nice about this. I would rather use far more harsh words, but it's disinformation. So let me get into this. A few years ago, when Rosalind Peterson was still alive here, about an hour and a half north of where we are, she ran a website called Agriculture Defense Coalition. Now, Rosalind was a USDA loss crop claims adjuster. And when crops were dying, she went to the lab and could not figure out what was happening until she discovered, to her horror, about the control of the weather and what they were spraying. And after she researched that on her own dime, she flew to New York, to the United Nations, and spoke. You can listen to Rosalind speak at the UN. You can type it in. You can see Rosalind talk about, please stop the spraying program. All the plants, the shrubs, the trees are being decimated. So I don't know if you can find that easily, Steve, but Rosalind was murdered of fast-acting cancer. And in tribute to her, because it was because of the information I received from her early on, that we went on field trips, and she showed us how the aerosolized military jets sprayed all over Mendocino County, and how they morphed it into the weather that then became, we were witnessing overhead. And we would talk almost daily to discuss what she was seeing there. Notice how it's changing as they move it over us. So let me get into this. Rosalind gave us information, a stack of documents to give to Berkeley, because Berkeley was misrepresenting. Lying is a good word, deceitful, destructive, other words fit, but I'll use deceitful. Berkeley was talking about the SOD program. SOD means sudden oak death. Now, here's what happened. Representatives from Berkeley came to Northern California to tell us that they needed to conscript citizen scientists to walk around neighborhoods with binoculars and cell phones. And if they spotted a laurel bush under an oak tree, to take a photograph, the address of the house and sent it to Berkeley so that they could put that house and address on a site where it was contaminated. And they were saying that in those contamination zones, cars needed to wipe their wheels off, their tires off, people needed to wipe their shoes off, and they needed to sanitize all cutting material, and they should not remove cut material to landfills because of the spread of fungus. They called it a fungus that was initiated by the laurel trees, that came from the laurel trees and spread onto the oak trees. And the California bay laurels were the identified host of this fungus. So they were going to conscript, and did, and we're getting people reporting on their neighbors and sending in photographs so Berkeley could complete this map showing all the contaminated areas. So today, I heard this woman from Berkeley talk about the most current findings from sudden oak death NIM. So I want to tell you about this and what this is going to result in. You can look this up. I heard from this woman named Carrie Winiger, WININGER at UCANR.edu. That's her email address. She is the sudden oak death coordinator and misrepresentation of what is the cause of the trees dying. It's the aerosol spraying overhead. It is not the laurel and the fungus. It's the fungus and mildew being caused in the atmosphere. So here's now what's added to the list of hosts for this fungus. Not only now have they said it was the California bay laurels, the English bay laurels, but now all rhododendrons, Steve, all camellias, all lilacs, and the worst of them all is the tan oak trees, because it says they self-infect by getting in, the fungus gets into the trunks, and once infected in the bark, it's the end of the life of the tan oak tree. They die. We have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of standing dead tan oak. And we have hundreds of thousands of standing dead conifers from what they have done to the atmosphere with heavy metals. We now know that at least at 6 inches in depth, the soil is so contaminated with heavy metals that our trees and shrubs cannot uptake any atmospheric toxic rain that we're delivered. It's chemical rain, but they can't uptake the water. They're dying. It's like plaque in arteries. They can't uptake water. In fact, there was a graduation event at Diablo State University just a couple weeks ago, and this would be in Central California. You can look it up. Diablo State University graduation. Graduation participants were sitting in the stands, and many were standing under a tree. There was no wind, and the tree toppled over onto a number of people. They're falling. They are weapons. You must massively reduce the wind that can blow your trees over, because they are now weapons. Just like the dams and reservoirs are weapons. Just like the EV lithium-ion batteries are bombs on wheels. They explode. So let me get back into the laurel, because here's what we're going to see. Back at the time, Berkeley told us that they had a vaccine-type spray called Agrofos, and that you could spray that on your oak trees. Now, there were hundreds of people that met at these meetings because many people had these gorgeous oak trees that they designed houses around, Steve. They were centerpieces in the center of driveways, and they were collapsing of sudden oak death. And they were buying this material from Berkeley that didn't work, and they were spraying this agrophos on the trees, on the oak trees. But now look what they've included, not only the California bay laurels, the English laurels, but all rhododendrons, camellias, lilacs, and now tan oaks. They're defoliating us. Why are they defoliating us? Falls into the same thing as the sustainable development requirements. And it's eliminating and reducing our oxygen supply. Now we know about that, right, Steve?
Yes, very much so.
Yes. So here's what we have. We have what is now being told to us. Sonoma County has more sudden oak death than any other county in California, except for Marin, which is a very affluent area just north of the Golden Gate, and that is where our governor lived, with his blue roof, and his neighbor that has a white roof, because they know that blue and white reflect the blue of the weapons used during the fires. We showed that in a program, right?
Yes, yes, we did. And that is on our playlist that people can go back and actually see, one of the first ones.
So here's what we have in store. The U.S. Forestry Department is having funding reduced, and they have been involved in the campaign to lie about sudden oak death. This is the U.S. Forestry Department. And they say they discovered sudden oak death. It started in the mid-'80s, but it wasn't really recognized until early 2000s. And it's a pathogen. Well, what was very heavy that started in the 80s? It was the overhead aerosolized death dumps.
Yes.
That's when it became heavy, 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 heavy over us here. And before that, before people noticed. But here's what's going to happen. We're being identified as areas of spreadable pathogens. She said that this is going to be nationwide. It just hasn't spread nationwide, but it's all there and ready to spread because there's chemtrailing over all of us. So they're going to start shutting areas down as contamination zones because of plant material, and not letting us go out of contaminated areas. This is lockdowns due to plants. So we've got a bioweaponized attack against humans, against animals, and against all plants and everything else, Steve.
It is a disaster, and I have on the screen for people too an article that I found talking about sudden oak death and all the different counties that were affected in California. And they're dating this, of course, the article is not from 1994, but talking about it from 1994 on. And they said 127 host species of this fungi has now been identified. Wonder how that happened, right?
Well, we know that Berkeley is spreading disinformation, that is not how this is spread. Rosalind sent them packets of factual information from her lab results, remembering that she was and worked for the U.S. Ag Department.
Yes.
They would not listen to her. In fact, when we went to some of these Berkeley meetings, they wouldn't even call on us because they knew that we were going to give the truth to the people, the hundreds of people that were sitting there. So we were spreading out flyers, letting people know it was actually from cloud seeding. We didn't want to use the heavy words.
Well, this is exactly what Harold Kautzvilla, when he did the study in Germany, when they asked him to conduct a study, and he determined that the botany life was dying as a result of chemtrailing.
That's exactly right. So the bioweapon attacks have been ongoing, relentless, and increasing. And we must all, Steve, we must all think about the ways in which we can attempt to survive under these ruthless, deadly attacks, because we're being run by people that are heartless. It's beyond greed. It's heartless. It's absolutely heartless. And many of these groups, in fact, there have been many discussions as of late about Silicon Valley being a CIA funded operation. Of course it is. It is a horrific um, location. And I guess I want to wrap up the show pretty quickly, but I want to talk about, if I can get to it. Let me see if I can get to it. It's a woman that I reported on. Let me get you her name. As I'm hunting for her name, I want to explain what this was about. A number of years ago, this woman who had a tech business and had about 80 employees was doing very well. She went to Silicon Valley for a meeting, and she was frantically sending emails and texts to her family and her husband. I believe that she lived in Idaho or Colorado, somewhere like that. And she was distraught. And she was on her way to the airport after typing these frantic messages and sending these messages to her family. And she never boarded the plane. She was found a week later dead in San Jose, which is the bedroom community around Silicon Valley. And I covered her story, and I received some thanks from her family because her murder was never solved. And I'm trying to find her name. Maybe you can type it in while I'm searching.
Okay.
I can't easily find it. But she was talking about the end is here. It's over. And she was frantic and panicked, texts information to her family. And then she was murdered, never to get on the airplane. Hang on, I'm still trying to find her name. We can't let this woman die in vain for discovering what she was not allowed to explain to anybody. And when I covered her story, again, as I say, it was horrific. And let me just find her name.
What year roughly was that?
Oh my.
Was it 1981?
I don't think it was that long ago. No.
Okay.
I think it was in the I think it must have been maybe the late 90s, maybe even the early 2000s.
Okay.
I'll find her name. But here it is. Erin, she's a woman. Erin, Erin, Valenti, Valenti. She figured it out. And she said, we are in a matrix of hell and we're suffering. And they've pulled it off.
Oh, yes. You know, I actually did a story on her myself one time.
So if you can pull up her story, people need to know how many people before us were trying to warn. So please, as we end this discussion of these documents on the reveal tonight, Steve, we stand on the shoulders of people before us that did their level best to try to warn us. But it was too big. It was an illusion so large and so vast that it escaped our perception. And I would recommend everyone read Silent Weapons for Quiet Wars and The Secret Illuminati Covenant. 3 downloads from stopthecrime.net. And when we do our next reveal, I'm going to go over more of what is happening locally with the water supply and the reduction of water. And the fact that the local water agency, I might as well get this out now so people can remember. Sonoma Water here in Sonoma County knows about primary water. Paul Power, whom you know, Steve, P-A-L Power, P-A-U-E-R, now deceased, was the Hungarian water wizard. Paul drilled primary water wells. He drilled a number of primary water wells for Sonoma Water in Sonoma County. Please don't forget that. He told us where he drilled. We know where those wells are. And right now, as we speak, they are installing massive pumps and lines to transmit and sell that water to counties south of us and not tell the people here that they are tapped in to primary water, which is a renewable water. And we run primarywater.org, the website primarywater.org. And when you go on to stopthecrime.net and you go back in through the videos that I've posted, they stack on top of one another. You're going to want to search for the many with Paul Power, Debra Tavres and Paul, P-A-L, Power, P-A-U-E-R. Please understand, running out of water. We're running out of the truth. And the truth is deadly. The truth is deadly in the sense that the truth has been reinvented. So with that, Steve, I think that we should wrap it up and we can resume some deeper dives into this information. And we'll tie it in to the NASA war document and into some other documents and into the water privatization that has occurred throughout the United States and throughout the world. And they're reducing our oxygen supply. And we'll go over a document I have on all of that too. So Steve, I want to thank you for this broadcast and getting this information out, which I know you're very much aware of as well. And I think as you heard me go over this document, the National Blueprint for Biodefense, what were you thinking?
Well, it just seems to me, Deborah, that it has been a plot for more than 100 years that they've been planning to bring about a complete global takeover. And there's a very sinister and evil group that is wanting to make that happen. And when I saw that, I just see the handwriting on the wall in every direction imaginable that they are going to have their new world order, but they're going to have it with a lot less people so that they can control that a lot easier.
That's right. And I also have maps. I'll send them to you for our next reveal.
Okay.
U.S. Forestry's takeover of the water supply. We're talking about a well, W-E-L-L, well water users, because they can take over and cut off the reservoirs and eliminate the dams and cut off municipal water supply users. But that does not affect well water users.
Yes.
And I'll send you that map. I'll send you some information on that. So everybody that's listening, stay tuned. We have much to reveal, much to discuss, much to disclose, giving all of you the opportunity to write in the comments some ways in which you think we can harden up. Now, as far as the water goes, I mentioned earlier, find where your closest springs are to your homes. Go and visit those springs. See if they have plumbing connected to those springs so you can fill water jugs up. Get water jugs. You will need to get to water. You heard me read in this document that we could be without water for days, for weeks, and longer. I read that to you in this document.
Yes,
So
and that's one
prepare.
reason why governments have been stocking up water for quite some time. They're also preparing for what they're going to do.
That's right, Steve. Well, Steve, again, I want to thank you. This is Debra Tavres with stopthecrime.net, primarywater.org, and toxicsky.org. Visit all of our websites. And Steve, would you explain to people how they can find our interviews and how they can also please share in these reveals?
Yes, and you can easily go to our YouTube channel. Deborah also will be posting it on stopthecrime.net. But if you go to israelinewslive.org, excuse me, Israeli News Live YouTube, you will just scroll down, and the easiest way to find it is under the created playlist, and it'll be under Debra Tavares. And when you click on that, good afternoon, friend Stephen Bennun. We have several videos in here going back. One of the older ones that we did is also in there that my wife. I'm still looking for some of the even older ones in there, but we keep all the playlists there. So this video will be there as well as it will be in the recently released interviews on Israeli News Live. Deborah, you also load that up on your channel as well. What's the name of that channel?
Well, we post the videos on stopthecrime.net under videos.
Okay.
And I want to just end it by saying everything is pre-planned. Everything is staged in advance. AI computers have been activated. And also during wars, we're seeing what has happened now with recognizing the use of Palantir in Gaza. So I will leave you all with the plain understanding how long AI has been in existence. Well before it was brought to the general conversation, it has been in existence for a very, very, very long, long, long time. And I did a video that you can listen to. It's called Wicked AI. Please listen to it. You will understand about coding and the use of numbers to decode our reality. And you must start understanding that. In fact, it's called gematria. And Steve, we're going to go over that. I have a group that I converse with that maybe we should have join us and have a discussion on decoding, how everything is told to us well in advance of the event actually happening, like in the cartoons of The Simpsons, when we were told in advance of 9/11. We were also told in The Simpsons through the computer how that was going to cause deadly frequencies. That was also foretold in The Simpsons. There's many things that have been foretold. And we need to start understanding how gematria works, how to decode numerical systems and decoding letters into numbers, how we can understand in advance the plans that are set upon us. So I'll look forward to having that program with you, Steve.
Sounds great, Deborah. Well, thank you guys for listening. Stephen Bennun, Israeli News Live, Debra Tavres, stopthecrime.net, and primarywater.org. Have a blessed evening.